Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here, back again. Ashley from Gardening in Canada. The apocalypse hasn't happened yet. If you haven't seen our earlier videos that we did, she goes into great depth about how to grow things indoors, pretty much everything as it pertains to getting into the gardening realm of things. Today on the channel, we're going to talk about how our experiments went this summer, but we're also going to be talking in particular how we can maximize the yield of our potatoes, because potatoes, as far as I know, are one of the ultimate apocalypse foods. I want to know how we can grow the most amount of potatoes in the least amount of space, with the least amount of energy, with the least amount of inputs into the system. That's our goal. I know you've brought some stuff here today that looked like it came out of Mario 4, you know, the level where everything is just gigantic?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it reminded me of.
That's just good gardener.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that it's some kind of inferiority complex that she has. I don't know what inferiority complexes mean for women, but I can tell you that my potatoes are small, so ladies, you know, just do the math.
I'm better.
My experiment this year, what I did, just to give people a summary, we tried to grow a bunch of stuff indoors here. Tomatoes, squash, peppers, a variety of like really hot peppers, reaper peppers, green peppers, yellow peppers, zucchini, onions, beans. Most of them didn't quite work out that great, to be honest, but the tomatoes worked out good, at least from my perspective, not from the giganticism lady's perspective, who wants everything, you know, bigger for some reason. But the one that really disappointed me was the potatoes, right? Because here I was thinking, you know, I'm looking at Matt Damon in the movie The Martian. It's the year 2035. This guy has to grow potatoes in order to survive, so he uses human feces to fertilize the Martian soil, which apparently is too acidic to grow potatoes in, but he does it somehow. So I need to know how to grow potatoes indoors in a very small space with limited amount of energy. And that was the one here. I was gonna, you know, I was sending you pictures because the potato plants, the leaves were huge. And lo and behold, I dig up the potatoes at the end of the year, and it was pretty depressing to see the size of these things.
You didn't specify that you wanted to grow big potatoes. You just said you wanted to grow potatoes.
You would think that me being a survivalist, why would I want small potatoes?
Because you specifically said, and I'm sure we could get the video footage originally, you chose the package because those ones looked tasty.
Yeah, I want the deep fried craziness.
Yes.
I don't think so.
I swear to God, you did pick like fingerling butterball type. So that's number one. Second thing is we did do it in a rush. By the time you contacted me, we went shopping and planted. There wasn't enough time to chit the potatoes, which I think we're gonna talk about later. So that one is the second thing that we did not do. And then the third/fourth thing was the fact that you were growing in containers, and this year was very, very, very hot. So when you grow in containers and you don't have a way of cooling or climate controlling a container, the roots get warm, and hot roots mean just smaller root mass in general. And unfortunately, for potatoes in this case, the smaller roots would result in smaller potatoes. And that's kind of what I think happened with a lot of your veggies, is the roots got very, very warm. And then the third thing, or the fourth thing, and Nate has a real big issue with this, watering. You do not water enough.
Okay, we gotta go back. I'm getting old. I can't carry all these things in my brain. Now, you said that it's getting too hot. So what are we gonna do if the planet's heating up? Apparently we're going into an ice age according to some of the internet geniuses out there. But, you know, all the other dumb people are saying that it's getting hotter out. So is bucket gardening lucrative then outdoors? Or am I gonna have to just move it into the ground, move it into a raised garden bed? How can we mitigate that problem?
So initially you said you were growing indoors. So
Yes.
Indoors it would have been okay in containers.
Right.
But when you transfer things outdoors, that's when you don't get as big of yields. And like, so I grew some potatoes in buckets this year as well. I did Rubbermaid's cloth bucket, and then like this, it's like this Swedish kind of contraption looking thing. And those ones all yielded very small potatoes, again, because of hot roots.
So you did the same thing I did, you put them outside.
I grew them 4 different ways. But
Because to be honest, I got lazy. And I told myself, look, it's hot outside, the sun's out there, it's free. This is an experiment I should have ran in wintertime, which is what we're gonna do now. So what I did is I moved everything outside at about the 1.5 month mark, somewhere in mid-July, I think. Yeah, that's when I had some blooming of the tomatoes, everything started to become really lush, but the potatoes really started to suffer at that point, now that you mention it.
yeah.
So, okay, we figured out what we did wrong. Tomatoes did good, everything did good, but my potatoes sucked, and that's why we're having this conversation today. Now, we're gonna go over to the kitchen and we're going to examine some of the specimens that you brought in today. I don't know what sort of steroids you pumped into these things to get them this large.
Water.
Okay, well, we're gonna test that experiment in our next round. And if I water too much, it's your fault.
Okay.
Okay, so Ashley, did you know that technically the traditional white potato contains, I'm not reading a teleprompter at all here, folks. The traditional white potato contains all of the essential amino acids you need to build proteins, repair cells, and fight diseases. And eating just 5 of them a day would get you there. However, if you tried to subsist in the apocalypse on white potatoes alone, you would eventually run into vitamin and nutrient deficiencies. Did you know that?
No.
Well, that's because I'm smarter than you.
I don't need to survive on potatoes. I got variety.
This is what we've got going on here. These are my potatoes right here. This is what undercompensating looks like. I was trying to explain undercompensating to her because she's still used to overcompensating for deficiencies in her person. For me, I don't need to do that. I'm perfectly fine with who I am. So this is why my potatoes look like this and yours look like that. That's the rationale I'm going on. Anyways, these are the red potatoes I grew in the garden. These are your potatoes. So how the hell, I know this is a different type of potato.
No,
right?
it's the same.
Now I'm even more depressed. Why on earth? This is how to survive. This is how to die. What the hell did I do
I'll share
wrong?
this one for you. This one's like a 2-person meal.
So, okay, tell us what I did wrong, because this doesn't look right.
So one thing that people will do is they'll cut them and they'll do like 3 eyes per whatever. If you don't let them scar over or the sections that you cut are too small, you can end up with a smaller potato. So mine I don't cut, I just put the whole, I buy 2 25-pound bags. So I bought 25 pounds of the red potatoes, 25 pounds of these white guys, and I just throw the whole potato in the ground. So that's, yeah. Step 2 is you need to chit them.
Chit.
Yes.
C-H-I-T.
So it's called chitting, and what we do in that case is you would take your potato and you're gonna put it in a shallow dish in light, not to the point that it's gonna burn, but just under a grow light or in a bright room. And out of all these little eyes, you're going to get sprouts that come out. So if you've got like one long leggy sprout, that's a sign that your plant's not going to do well. You want very small little uniform sprouts, like they'll be like 10 or 12, like just in a little clump.
Yeah.
And that's what you're looking for, very compact, very small. And that just is less energy in the sprout and more energy still being reserved in the actual potato itself.
Just so you guys know, I bought these from the grocery store because you told me we're gonna go out and we're gonna try to do some chitting today, right? So Helen from the grocery store sold me these. These 4 potatoes, how much do you think those cost me? With the Vladimir Putin food price increase, how much do you think those cost? Just take a guess, 4 potatoes.
$4?
$7.50. Even Helen was like, what the hell are you doing? What are you thinking? She's like, this is the most expensive science experiment I've seen in some time. So she was giving me shit. She was giving me chit, I should say. I don't know if that works. But
Oh my God, you did not just do that.
so we're just gonna go with 4. So these got a few eyes. So we're gonna chit these guys up today. We're gonna try to grow these in buckets over winter in here.
One thing that I will say is that you want to make sure that there's not too much nitrogen. So if you have excessive green growth, very light green growth, that's a sign of too much nitrogen. And when you have too much nitrogen and not enough phosphorus and potassium, the nutrients is basically imbalanced. And that will mean that it will not put the energy into the roots, the below ground biomass, and it'll put it all into the above ground biomass.
Jeez.
So then you will end up with smaller roots because that's essentially what potatoes are,
So
right?
that could be what happened with our bucket, is that we had too much nitrogen.
Very possible.
Right. Does the density of the soil have anything to do with it?
It does, yeah.
Because I was concerned that you have this thing growing in this small bucket, like a fish in a fish tank, right? It has to push the soil away, doesn't it? So you need some good, like really fluffy soil, right? Maybe I compacted it too much.
So to put it in a perspective, like when I'm checking to see if my potatoes are done or not, I'm literally like sticking my hand into the mound, like in actual soil, and I'm feeling around and I'm actually feeling for the potatoes.
So aren't you killing the root systems when you do that?
You're gonna rip some, but actually, fun fact, if you tear a root, you are causing the auxin in the root tip, the apical meristem, to be redistributed, and it causes a fork. So technically every time you break roots or shoots, in some cases, you end up with more. What I would do in your case, I would add quite a bit of organic material. Like I would say like 2-3 inches. I haven't seen your backyard soil, so I don't really know what the situation is, but general recommendation, 2-3 inches, till that in. Some people are gonna take us to the bank.
So when you say organic material, you're talking about compost?
Compost, peat moss, really doesn't matter. It could be sawdust, really.
Okay.
Almost anything.
To kind of fluff up the soil a bit.
Exactly, yeah. And then I would till those under. Then what I do for these guys, like what I did for these guys, is I did a shovel depth in, and then I mounded them after. And I'm gonna post a video on
what
how
do you mean by
grow these.
mounding? Give us a quick once over
So you're going to literally take the soil surrounding the potato and then pull it up over top of the plant. So similar to what we did to these in the buckets where we filled it up, we're doing the same thing with these, but in the ground. So we're just gonna mound the soil. So I just use a hoe and I just like pull it up over top of the plant. And I'll do that 3 times total in a year to get this. And then that's the thing, is that mound is very loose and fluffy. So to actually get your hand in to feel, very easy to do.
So you put the potato in the ground, the chit potato, it starts getting leaves on it. You put dirt over that. It comes up again, you put dirt over it. It comes up again, you put dirt over it, and then it's done.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you have like a particularly hard soil, so like a hard clay or anything like that, I would over dig your hole. So if you're not into tilling, you wanting to do like the no dig thing and stuff, you need to make a bigger hole, like 2 times the size of what you intended to initially plant the potato in. And then you could technically, if you wanted to, fill that hole with like peat or potting soil, and then you would mound with just regular soil after that. So again, you have that fluff around that plant that will allow it to expand into that space.
Because really, like, people grow potatoes in all kinds of mediums, right?
Oh yeah.
You can grow them in hay or
yeah, roost out. Yeah, I actually did the roost out method this year. Yeah.
Okay. So in summary then, the things that I did wrong, the reason why yours looks like this, mine looks like this, my soil was probably too compact, the temperature was too hot with the transfer to outside, I underwatered, too much nitrogen. Anything else I'm forgetting?
Variety. You just picked the wrong variety in the case of those.
In the case of these, okay. So yeah, we're all about surviving as long as possible on this channel. So we're gonna go with the biggest variety. Now, the next stage is Chitting Helen's potatoes. So we need a tray. Let's get one of these Harvest Right trays. How about that? So how much depth of water do we put in here?
Not much. So you can do like I would just do like a little bit. Ideally, you'd miss these, but I know that you'll forget to miss them.
Did you just say I'll forget to miss them?
Yeah, I feel
That's a pretty big assumption on your part, but okay.
Will you? Will you?
I don't know. So let's cut them up. I just
God.
sharpened
No, don't cut them.
What?
We're not cutting them.
But
What are we gonna? How many plants do you want? Let's do 1 potato per bucket. This time.
let's do 8 plants.
Okay, chop them in half then.
Like in half?
Yeah.
All right. Look at that.
Now, this is obvious that there's
hang on.
more than 3 eyes.
I got a subscriber who I know is gonna watch this video. A subscriber, handmade
That is so beautiful.
handmade cutting board. here from Saskatchewan. Thank you very much. I read your letter and I love it. This thing is
so
amazing.
Pretty.
All right, there we go.
The key here is that you have 3 eyes per potato. So these are pretty big. They definitely have 3 eyes.
Like
and
what
the
are...
eyes are the indents. Yeah, so the indents on the...
Okay, there's one here.
Yeah.
One here, one here. Oh,
yeah. So you want 3 eyes per portion. So technically you could cut these even farther, but I don't like to do that. And that's how I get the monsters, because I don't take away the energy source too much. I give it still quite a bit of energy source to get through. So we're gonna leave these. You wanna make sure that they're on the tray with this side open, because we actually need this to scab over. It's very important. If they don't scab over, it can cause like disease issues. So since we're gonna do these on here and they're not fully cured yet, they can turn green. So we're gonna just chit these like on the cupboard somewhere for right now. And then once next week, you
can like put them in a bowl
sun.
or something?
Yeah, because they'll turn green. These ones will turn green. These ones are not cured yet.
Okay.
There's quite a few in my basement curing at the moment. And if you're doing potatoes for storage, you need to cure them. The difference.
So what is curing? How does that work?
So we're thickening of the skin. So like this skin, see how I can't rub it off? I can't get rid of it. It's like kind of like a literal skin.
Yep.
This, if you feel this, feel how nice and soft that is compared to...
Yeah, it's like...
Yeah. So you need to harden the outside. So curing, what I do is I just put it in the basement, not in cold storage. It's about, 10, 15 degrees on the floor. And I have a fan on them and I run it for about 20 days. And I just go through and I continually flip them and like pick out the ones that are starting to kind of get mucky and gross. And so that is one thing that you can do for curing. After they're cured after 20 days, then you can put them in cold storage because they'll have this nice thick skin. You can't cure ones that have the nicks in them. You have to freeze dry them or can them right away. You have to use them up. You can't store those ones at all.
Okay.
The skin cannot be busted on your potato whatsoever. So
what are we doing here? Just pouring water on these, or how does that work?
yeah, so just the tiniest little bit because we don't want them to rot. So what you want to do every day is you'll go through and you'll just keep the humidity up around them.
Should I be flipping them and stuff?
Yeah, like you can flip them halfway through the day type thing, but you don't...
Me touching them, is that bad? Like the stuff on my hands, is that... No, okay.
Every day when you go to do this, just empty the water in the tray though, right? So don't...
Every day?
Or mist, or get a mister. Do you have a mister bottle?
I'm just getting a mister, so then I just gotta spray it.
You just have to spray them, yeah, top and
Way
bottom.
easier.
Okay.
How can you think that was harder than this?
Well, I don't know, because if you forgot, at least there'd be some form of water in the bottom, and then you went...
Well, we're just gonna have this out and we could do it as a community. All right, so what we're gonna do in the future then is we're going to eventually, how long do you think these are gonna take? A couple months or something?
Oh no, they're gonna chit like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Nice. I was just saying worst case.
This...
I'm always worst case scenario.
I know. So we're gonna wait till they sprout, and then we're going to plant those sprouted potatoes. So there's 2 things that's gonna happen. We're gonna get sprouts from the eyes, and then we're going to get calcing on this area here. And those are both things that we need. If we throw in a cut potato that's not calloused, there's a risk that the potato could get an infection and then eventually die off. So you're just potentially lowering your yields. Yeah. I mean, my grandma's done it for years. I've done it in the past. I stopped doing the cutting. I chit the roots. I don't cut anymore. But regardless, this is just really gonna maximize the yields. And then that's how I did, these ones, for example, so.
Okay. So what sort of monstrosities do you have here? Like, it looks like you're all ready for the nuclear
I knew
future.
you weren't going to survive the winter, so I thought I would help you survive the winter. So these are giant root vegetables. So that's a carrot. I don't even know, how do you show what a normal carrot looks like? I feel like you can't, but this is quite large.
That's
this
unusual.
is 9 ounces, 9.9 ounces. So, and these potatoes, all of this stuff was over a pound. So this is a beet.
I actually like beets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is, again, I mean, you could look up the nutrient profile on this, but I'm a big color person. So besides being a gardener, I love cooking and I love canning and that sort of stuff. And color is one of my prerequisites. So the purple in this is a must have. Orange.
Is it true that the colors of things in vegetables and fruits reflect their nutrient content? So if you're getting a full color palette, you're getting all your nutrients, or is that just
No, I think that is
BS?
No, I think that actually is true. But yeah, so I like cooking with color. I like preserving with
Big
color.
brain.
Yeah, because you just, I don't know, you get bored eventually. So, and I'm a zero waste, like canner prepper, I guess you could say. So when I can, I'll cut like my tops and my bottoms off, and then tops and bottoms, and I'll dehydrate the tops and bottoms, and then I'll make like a vegetable powder from that. The key with growing big ones of this, big root veg, is again the loose soil, but variety. So we're in a colder climate. So this is a winter's variety, and
That'll keep for a long time.
you can keep carrots for an entire year, and beets you can keep up to 6 months without canning. So the way that you do it is in a Rubbermaid with vermiculite, sand, or soil, and then you layer them out, and then you do a layer, and then a layer, and then a layer. And I'm gonna do a video on how to store these properly. But yeah, so you can store these without canning or dehydrating or freezing.
That's what we need. This is what we need to know.
Yeah, this will last a year. Like my carrots, I still have carrots from last year that I'm just now going to do, like, you know, fermenting is super in right now in the health industry. So I'm gonna try to ferment my carrots this year. But yeah, the ones that I have left over, but they'll last for ages if you store them properly. Same with beets, not as long. They'll last for about 6 months, but there's some specific things you need to look at, like the condition of it and how you're storing it and that sort of stuff. So maybe that's like a separate video, but yeah, you can store these for a year just like this, and they're super tasty. Leave these in the garden. So I didn't harvest many carrots. I just harvested this carrot and a couple other ones for this video. But the carrots, if you leave them in till it frosts, sweetest, like they're so flavorful. Like you should wash this off and eat it after. You would be shocked how tasty this is, like a garden carrot is.
Put that in a stew or something.
Oh, it's just eat it raw. It's like literally addicting. It's so sugary.
So what else do we got going on here?
This is a spaghetti squash.
That's a massive spaghetti. What the frick is that?
I know, isn't that crazy?
That's the biggest spaghetti squash.
So I
actually eat spaghetti squash quite regularly. And I've never...
I know.
That doesn't even look like a spaghetti squash.
I know. So I seed save. I wish I could have brought my corn. I have big corn cobs too. That actually turned out really good, but I ended up shucking them and canning them all before we even talked about this video. Same with my tomatoes. I wish I could have brought my tomatoes over. I think you saw my tomatoes and you're like, what the hell? Because my tomatoes were huge, the size of my head. Remember when we talked about the first video and I said, if you save seeds from something grown in your climate and you're saving the best seeds from your crop, you are slowly getting a plant conditioned to your environment.
Right.
So me saving my potato seeds, my seed potatoes every year, what I have left over for potatoes, I don't store them. I can some, I dehydrate some to make like Idaho mashed potatoes, but I do save quite a few and I will plant them in the ground. But the other way to avoid that if you run out of potatoes is to go to PB Mart, for example, and buy the bag that says Saskatchewan, whatever.
Right.
Potato, because this is grown in a Saskatchewan soil. So the ones I got were from some farm in Melfort, probably leftover potatoes that they had that they ended up not being able to sell. They bagged them up, sold them to PB. So that's how you get monster potatoes. You get something that's locally grown.
And this other thing you got over here is...
So this is a zucchini, and I brought this because people right now, my neighbors and everything, are saying, I'm done with zucchini. I don't want them anymore because they will produce and produce and produce, which is fine. But I'm here to say, save this. Because if you have
How long will that last just like that?
Quite a while. So this I harvested probably 3 weeks ago. If you can dehydrate this or freeze dry it, you can do it, dehydrate in the oven even if you wanted to.
And you can also club a baby seal if, you know, you need a protein.
A gluten-free flour. So people will grow, I've seen people grow like wheat and rye and all that sort of stuff in their garden, and they have to grow an entire lawn of this stuff and then, you know, shuck it or like thrash it and that sort of thing. Just avoid that. Do giant zucchinis and then dehydrate them and turn them into flour. This is a gluten-free flour.
Anyways, thank you for coming out and sharing this wealth of information. I would encourage you guys to go and subscribe to her channel and watch some of her videos before she blows up. Thanks for coming out. You guys take care. Canadian Prepper out.
The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com, where you'll find high-quality survival gear at the best prices, no junk, and no gimmicks. Use discount code PREPPINGGEAR for 10% off. Don't forget, the strong survive, but the prepared thrive. Stay safe.